As many of you know, we here at Brainstorm started a Teespring campaign to sell shirts and raise funds so we can make a donation to the Canadian Mental Health Association. Well, I've been kind of pushing it pretty hard, messaging bloggers and podcasters to help promote it and harassing everyone I know to buy a shirt. With a few hours left, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's helped spread the word so far. Prominent atheist activist JT Eberhard let me do a guest blog post, even though I'm a terrible writer. Podcasters from Skeptically Challenged, Cognitive Dissonance, Irreverent Skeptics, and The Herd Mentality have all given us a plug on their show or a share on their Facebook page, and I really appreciate it. A big thanks to everyone who reserved their shirts. I'd like to give you shout-outs by name, but I'm never sure if people want their name in the public or not. And a big thanks to one listener in particular, Ken. Really appreciate your donation. I can't really find the words to properly express how appreciative I am to everyone. This is a cause that I really care about, and I hope that we can help the CMHA with what they do, even if it's just a little bit. I just wanted to say that before we get into this episode. You guys didn't download this to listen to me ramble on, though. In this episode, Mike, Renee, Destin, and I talked to Michael Sherlock, author of The Gospel of Atheism and Free Thought, as well as the I Am Christ series, and he's big spokesperson for the Human Rights for Atheists and Agnostics organization. We managed to make our schedules mesh, even though we're on the opposite sides of the world, and he Skyped in with us while we were in the studio. This is episode 20, recorded on October 25th, 2014.
We can say definitively that religions are all bullshit.
Amen, brother.
Well, you know me, I don't buy into BS.
I get paid to sign.
I don't fit into human nature.
Do not come here, not come marry here.
What the hell was my point?
Brainstorm.
Well, maybe we'll get you to start talking about the stuff you're working on since that's fresh on your mind, unless you're like, nah, fuck it, I'm sick of that.
Yeah, I want to talk about, what do I want to talk about? The new TV show Selfie.
Oh.
I've never even heard of that.
No, me neither.
You haven't?
No.
It's really banal, but I like it for that reason. I like banal TV to unwind from all the reading and shit I do.
Oh, that kind of makes sense. You read pretty heavy stuff, eh?
Yeah, but it is relevant to my work, the show Selfie.
Oh?
It's about a girl who is absorbed with herself and always on Twitter, and she's obsessed with how many followers she's got on Twitter, and she doesn't give a shit about anyone else really, and she's all hashtag and all this shit. And so she meets a guy at work who's the opposite, and he's trying to reform her personality and turn her into a caring individual, someone who cares about people around her. And that Selfie new show is based on a 1950s movie called My Fair Lady, where a professor of elocution or professor of phonetics called Henry Higgins tries or takes a bet that he can reform a Cockney flower girl with a rough accent to sound like a duchess and pass her off as a duchess at a party. And so anyway, he takes the bet and he ends up falling in love with her. And that theme or that motif is based on an ancient Pygmalion myth, the ancient Pygmalion myth of the Greek Cypriots. And I use that very example in the second volume in my series to show that just because certain myths appear differently on the surface, that the essential motifs are intact. And no one would argue that My Fair Lady isn't based on George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion myth in 5 acts or whatever it's called, which was an earlier rendition of the Pygmalion. And then that in itself was based on the ancient Pygmalion Greek Cypriot myth, the Pygmalion myth, where Pygmalion is a sculptor and he's just disenchanted by all the prostitution and everything that's going around and doesn't have time for real women. So he creates a sculpture of a woman, his ideal woman, and he ends up falling in love with that woman, his sculpture. And Cupid comes and, kisses the hand of the statue or something under the orders of Aphrodite or Venus, and then that statue becomes real, and Pygmalion falls in love with the statue, and they live happily ever after. Okay. And so that ancient story, that ancient myth, was the inspiration of George Bernard Shaw's play, which in turn was the inspiration for the My Fair Lady movie, which was in turn the inspiration for this new show, Selfie.
Have you tried looking this up on tropes.com or anything like that?
No.
I wonder if they have a trope named for it yet.
What's trope? I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, you might not want to visit the site because you'll get lost there. I mean, you'll be there forever, kind of like if you visit Reddit or something. But it takes all of the themes that run through multiple TV shows, multiple movies, books, whatever. Cool. That's basically what it is. It's the fundamentals, the building blocks of all sorts of entertainment like that.
And one does not simply visit Reddit. You either Reddit or you don't.
It's a bit like the Hotel California then.
Hotel Reddit, yes.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. No, yeah, and so, I use that analogy to show that just because there are superficial or cultural differences between given myths, say, for example, the myths surrounding Jesus Christ, to earlier non-Christian, or for lack of a better word, pagan myths, that doesn't mean that they're not inspirational to the creation of the later Christ myths. And so just because we find differences, or I also draw upon the ancient Mesopotamian myths and show how they've been transplanted into Genesis and throughout the Hebrew Bible as well, and ancient Egyptian myths as well. So, so I use that as an example, and that's why I started talking about Selfie.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's themes that run throughout all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's also included in like a random television show. That's kind of...
Yeah, and this new television show, actually the characters are named after the characters in My Fair Lady, which I picked up and I was like, oh, cool.
Makes sense.
But I don't recommend My Fair Lady. It's a really boring black and white movie.
My TV list is so full.
Yeah. We were made to watch it in science class because our science teacher was lazy and didn't want to prepare classes. So every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he'd put a movie on for the kids to watch. And we watched some good ones, and that was one of the most boring ones, which ironically turned out to be really valuable for the second volume of my series to explain that aspect of mythology.
I think the only really crappy black and white movie I had to endure was Arsenic and Old Lace.
I haven't heard of it, but brutal. It sounds pretty good.
One of the few benefits you had from having a lazy teacher. That's not usual. Usually don't benefit from that.
No, right? So I got something very valuable out of science.
Something non-scientific and valuable. That's excellent.
Do you want to help make the Brainstorm podcast self-sustaining? For just $1 an episode, you can. Go to patreon.com/brainstormpodcast and become a patron, or go to gumroad.com/brainstorm and pay whatever you want for individual episodes. Different support levels can get you either a shirt or a hand-embroidered hat with the Brainstorm logo on it. If you can't give any money, that's fine. Give us a rating and write a review on iTunes or Stitcher. For a limited time, we're offering a Brainstorm t-shirt to the first person to review us on either podcatcher. If you just like listening and want to keep up with the show, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and check out our website, brainstormblog.net.
We are given one life, full of billions of small and large decisions. To be somebody, to change, to be kind, to give hope, to become a better person, and to leave a lasting impact on this planet. It is a decision to be made every single day while your heart is still beating. We've made our decision. Absence of Clothing, atheist and science-based apparel and merchandise, donating 50% of our profits to charity. Look good and feel good, without God. Check us out at absenceofclothing.com and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest for discount codes and other sweet swag.
If you use the offer code BRAINSTORM, you get 10% off.
Well, I suppose, to start off, like, what's your educational background? Like, what do you do?
What's my educational background? Primary school.
Okay.
Then high school. Then university. No, I went to university. I studied social anthropology, sociology, political science, and law. I spent 9 years at university. And so it was during my courses in social anthropology that I became interested in ancient myths and things like that, because for anthropological reasons, it was very interesting for me to look at the way modern societies were built on myth. Our laws, everything, it's all established upon ancient myths, and I found that really fascinating. So that led me to start studying the Bible, and then that led me to study comparative mythology and a little bit of mythicism, although I'm not a mythicist myself.
Oh, is that right?
No, I wouldn't call myself a mythicist, but there are good arguments for mythicism, no doubt.
It's interesting. We just had Richard Carrier on the last episode, not the last one, but the one before a couple ago, and he made some good points.
Yeah, he's not a bad scholar. I heard a bit of it, and I took a little bit of issue with some of what he was saying, but then again, he has a PhD in history, so I can't really challenge the great doctor. I don't pose myself as a scholar. I pose myself as a raving anti-theist. That's my thing. But in writing books, I'm very careful to present information that is backed with solid evidence, good evidence.
Right.
So I'm very careful with regards to that. So I guess, in my through the course of my reading, I've learned a little bit about mythicism and things like that. But I'm no expert. But I noticed he took issue with D.M. Murdoch, and I think. For me, I'm not a mythicist, and I'm certainly not a historicist either. I think both sides have some very good arguments. For example, the historicists have the argument from genre, which is quite a strong argument, meaning that, well, this is how ancient biographies were written. If you look at the biography of Plato or Pythagoras or Alexander the Great even, you'll see similar legendary embellishments or mythical embellishments placed onto their biographies, but that doesn't mean that they weren't historical characters.
Right. Right.
This was the way biographies were written back then. Also, you have the where there's smoke, there's fire argument, which isn't an entirely strong argument by itself, but coupled with the genre argument and other such arguments, you can argue that, well, all these people are writing about this Joshua character, this Yeshua character. It's possible that he did exist as a historical character, not as a sort of ancient divine David Blaine. There's no evidence for that. There's no credible evidence that Jesus was this son of God who could do magic and was this ancient magical alcoholic. There's no evidence for that. But there is some evidence to say that there was a historical Jesus, so you can't completely discount it. But then on the mythicist side of it, you're dealing with a scholarly consensus that says we all agree that there was a historical Jesus. But what's the source of that consensus? The source is a group of scholars who all come out of Bible seminary and Bible schools and Bible colleges. Of course they believe there was a historical Jesus. It's fundamental to their belief system.
Right.
So the scholarly consensus is somewhat tainted by a bias, a religious bias. So that's one of the problems with the historicist scholarly consensus that Ehrman will rest on and other scholars like that will rest on.
Yeah.
Not realizing, or probably realizing, that the scholarly consensus, although some very fine scholars, some very good historical scholars, I think Albert Schweitzer was quite a good historical scholar, but again, he was infected with Christianity. I mean, and I put it like that, he was infected. His mind was infected by this belief system.
Well, it does cause brain damage. It does cause brain damage.
It actually
for
it
what
can.
It's worth. Yeah.
Belief in an angry, oppressive, jealous, vengeful God has been scientifically shown through studies to cause paranoia and these types of mental illnesses.
Kind of actual conditions.
Yeah, definitely. But what was I saying? The scholarly consensus. That's right. So there is that weakness to the historicist argument that their scholarly consensus is based on a religious bias, and then the myth as well as other good arguments for the mythicist side is that we don't have contemporary sources. We have hypothetical contemporary sources like the Gospel of Q, which is said to be the source for Luke and Mark.
Yeah,
and other maybe there's variation. There's lots of different theories on Mark's sources and things like that, multiple source theory and things like that. But this Gospel of Q is a good example of a hypothetical source that would predate the Gospel of Mark, and Mark being written somewhere around 70 or after 70 CE, after the destruction of the temple. So we have those, and also the hypothetical oral tradition that Ehrman will talk about in his books, both in his, he only spoke about that in his popular works, I think, about people spreading this oral tradition about Jesus and da-da-da-da. So that oral tradition would predate Mark. So but apart from these hypothetical sources, these theoretical sources, our earliest historical source, legitimate historical source, would be the Gospel of Mark. Now, I know that St. Paul wrote before Mark. He was the earliest Christian author, but he knew diddly squat about Jesus' life. According to his own words, he didn't really know anything. He knew he died, he was resurrected, and there's even contention over whether Paul believed he was resurrected in the flesh or it was just a completely spiritual realm type resurrection, which Doherty and others have pointed to. But yeah, there's not very good historical evidence for a historical Jesus. But then when you're dealing with ancient history, you're not always dealing with the best.
It's tough to find the best evidence anyway, eh?
Exactly right. So, but the best evidence principle is a little bit, it can be limited, I think, in a lot of ways. It has some problems. But yeah, anyway, that's a story for another time.
Right.
Well, a quick
Sorry,
question.
it's Sunday. I'm kind of scattered. I'm all over the place.
Oh,
But yeah,
no
anyway,
worries.
I want to get back to that's where I was. Now I remember. I was talking about, I think he unfairly criticised D.M. Murdoch's work, and I don't think he's actually read her books, to be honest.
Is that right?
Based on his comments, I don't think he's read Murdoch's work. I first was very skeptical of D.M. Murdoch. When I first started looking into, not first started looking into mythicism, but first came across Acharya S. I was very skeptical. So what I did was I went and bought her books, because this is what I do when I'm skeptical of something. I get it and I look at it.
Right.
And I read through it. And so I got Christ in Egypt and I read through that. And it's an extremely comprehensive, well-sourced, very well-written book. It is an excellent book. It really is. I don't agree with all of the kind of the tone of the book I disagree with, but the information and the meticulous nature with which she dealt with those topics, I think was extremely good. And I think also Dr. Robert Price has commented on it as well, saying it was a brilliant book. And with regards to her, did Moses exist? If you have a read of that book, I think Dr. Robert Price said that, she should be awarded a doctorate for that.
Oh, is that right?
I mean, pardon?
Is that right?
Yeah, he's saying, she should be awarded a doctorate for that work. It's a perfect dissertation. It's brilliant. So I think she's been written off because of this Zeitgeist show,
Right.
this Zeitgeist movie. And when I first saw that too, I was like, okay, I don't think so. But some of the parallels I agree with. The only one I use in my work is the dangerous child motif that comes from Horus and Isis having to get Horus out of the location of a tyrant who was his uncle, and keep him in safety, and Horus then returns triumphant. And this was quite a common aspect of the hero archetype. that the hero would be in great danger at a young age and then be taken somewhere to safety, and that harkens to the Sargon of Babylonia myth. Then later the Moses myth, which was taken from the Sargon myth, or possibly both Egyptian and Mesopotamian sources. And then later the Jesus and Herod story, which only appears in the Gospel of Matthew and nowhere in history, and contradicts Luke as well. Luke doesn't have that narrative at all. Luke's narrative is actually in direct contradiction with that particular narrative, even though apologists have tried to bend it and twist it as much as they can to try and make it harmonized, that you can't harmonize it. And so, yeah, I think when you look at the scholarship that was put into D.M. Murdoch's work, I think it's sound scholarship. It is sound scholarship. I don't agree with all of her conclusions, all of the tone of the book is not my cup of tea, but you can't fault her scholarship in the area. And to be written off or described as low-hanging fruit, I disagree. Yeah, I disagree. And I have great respect for Carrier's work as well. I mean, like I said, he's a doctor. He's done some very good work, and I've read, and actually a lot of the stuff he's written about as well, I've covered as well. Like, for example, the problem with the virgin birth in Isaiah 7:14 being used as a prophecy for Jesus's quote-unquote virgin birth when there was no such thing. And in Isaiah, the original Hebrew was Alma, which is young woman, not Betula, which is virgin. And it was the woman was with child, not going to conceive in the original Isaiah. And so when Matthew took that, I say Matthew in inverted quotes because we don't know who wrote Matthew. Right. When Matthew took that, he changed it slightly to make it a prophecy. And then apologists say, well, it's a double entendre, the double entendre argument. It was relevant to 700 BC when it was a prophecy for King Ahaz, but it's also relevant for Jesus. And there's no evidence to suggest that that's the case, or that when the authors wrote that they had this in mind, or that they were secretly being manipulated by the Jewish tribal deity Yahweh / Elohim / whoever. I think, we've written on similar topics, Carrier and I. But again, he's a scholar. He is a legitimate scholar, and I like a lot of his writing. He's a very good writer as far as I'm concerned. But I do think that his criticisms of D.M. Murdoch were unwarranted, and from what I've heard, I don't think he's read her work. So I guess it's best to have an informed opinion rather than just slander people. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Well, I've noticed that a lot of scholars are really defensive.
They like to go at each other.
Yeah, it's really nasty, the whole historical Jesus issue, isn't it? Like, you've got Ehrman versus Carrier and Doherty and Price, and then you've got this rift between Carrier and D.M. Murdoch, and then it's really nasty. Like, it's really
Altman is that right? Altman? He's with the Roman conspiracy theory.
Oh, Atwell.
Atwell, that's right.
Yeah, sorry, I don't prescribe to the Atwell theory.
Yeah, nobody seems to, except for him. So
there's a massive problem with Atwell's theory, and again, I'm slandering someone who is actually a very good scholar. You read his work. I've read a lot of his stuff.
Right.
He's a very detailed scholar. He's an actual scholar too. He's a very detailed scholar. But where he's ended is a little bit like Oz. He's gone up this yellow brick road and he's just landed in Oz, I think, in my opinion. I don't agree with the conclusion that Christianity was this conspiracy created by the Roman Empire. No, I don't. And I've looked into it, and no, there's a lot of problems with this theory. If his theory is to hold any weight, then there must be no evidence of Christianity prior to 70 CE. But as most scholars will attest, and I think rightly so, Paul was writing before 70 CE.
Yeah, it wasn't...
Christianity existed prior to.
Wasn't he saying that the popularization of it was the conspiracy? That it was just a minor backwater considered belief until the Romans got a hold of it?
From what I got from his work, he was saying that the Roman Empire had the Old Testament locked up with no one could look at it, and they built the religion from scratch from this Old Testament, which I understand where he's coming from because I don't agree with it, but I understand where he's coming from because when you read, and this is a point I note in my work as well, when you read, for example, the Gospel of Mark, he doesn't seem to know what's where in Judea or Palestine. And he doesn't, he has a very poor geographic knowledge of Palestine and Israel. So does the author of John. He puts the town of Bethany on the wrong side of the Jordan. I mean, and then they go and create a Bethany east of the Jordan to try and reconcile this. Mark thinks, what's the city now? I can't think of it. Starts with B. They all start with B, though, don't they?
A good portion.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't think. And it's always Beth. It's always house of something. Anyway, he mistook a large city and described it as a small village when in fact it was a large city, and it's just north of the Sea of Galilee. I can't think of the name. Oh, anyway, let it go. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a scholar, and I don't pretend to be. But religion is bullshit.
Neither are we in that sense. Like I don't think any of us have our PhDs.
Not in this area.
Yeah, no. It's
no.
It's an interesting
that
subject. That doesn't
mean
though.
You can't comment. That doesn't mean this. I hate this fallacy. I hate this fallacy where people say, well, unless you have certain initials in front of your name, you can't make a comment on certain issues. Well, if I've read the book and I find a logical flaw or an evidentiary error or a lack of evidence for a specific claim, am I not allowed to put my hand up and say, excuse me, is there a problem with this? Because this looks like you haven't thought it out properly, or this doesn't appear to be in accordance with the evidence that we have, or it seems like you're overreaching for the amount of evidence that you have to arrive at this conclusion. Aren't we not allowed to at least say that? And that's what I do in my work. No, I'm sorry, I don't care. If there's a problem, anyone can point it out.
Of course.
If you've done the reading, you've done the research, you don't need initials, you just need a voice. Speak up.
And the notion that you do need initials is just ad hominem. It's attacking the person rather than the content of what the person's saying. Exactly right. So the reverse of the argument to authority, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. And it's elitist as well, isn't it? Because not everyone can afford to go to these universities or to be funded. Not everyone was born with those kind of privileges, yet they may have access to books. Okay, that's not as expensive as, say, getting a PhD in philosophy or history or anything like that. So maybe they've read just as much as the scholar has, but they don't have the money for that education, and they're an extremely intelligent person. Perhaps that gives them a right to speak up and voice questions. So I don't agree with the elitism of that fallacy that you have to be a doctor in whatever. I think you should take scholarly consensuses seriously and the opinions of seasoned scholars seriously. I'm not saying you shouldn't just disregard them because they're scholars. No way. That's again the opposite of the fallacy. That's the other side of the coin. But what I'm saying is that, intelligent people should be allowed to speak whether or not they have initials in front of their name.
Yeah, it's not a requirement for having an opinion on it.
If only people with initials were allowed to have an opinion, you wouldn't have anybody that had initials.
That's true. So that's Jesus, and that's the historicist and mythicist hive at the moment.
Yeah, so I guess part of why we wanted you on here was for the human rights for atheists movement that you've got going.
Which I think is much more important than the question of a historical Jesus. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes. Just before we leave that was actually my main question. Unless you're a scholar who's also religious, Jesus' existence doesn't even matter if he actually did or not. If you're not religious, it wouldn't matter to you.
Well, no, I'll take issue with that, and I like where you're coming from.
It's just a question. I've never really thought of it before. So.
Yeah, so my thing is, if you're not religious, and the historical Jesus can matter, because let's say, for example, we produce a secular scholarly consensus that shows that Jesus was not a historical person. That then undermines Christianity, and it also undermines its retarded little brother Islam. All right?
Oh, for sure. I totally see that side of the coin. But does it
because
matter
Islam
if he
is
did
also
exist?
founded on this notion of a historical Jesus. He's very significant to the Quran.
Right. No, I get that. My question was, would it matter if he did?
Would it matter? No, true. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That was my question.
You're right. Yeah, okay.
Obviously, if we proved he didn't exist, then that's fantastic.
Okay, you've got that point. All right.
That's good stuff.
Okay, so
I'm still laughing at the retarded little brother comment.
Well, it is, isn't it? How else would you describe it? I mean, it's the Quran. If you read it, it's torture porn.
There is no other way I'd describe it. I'm just going to use that phrase from now on, I think.
Yeah, I think
I see the Abrahamic religions as kind of like a really dysfunctional Manson family.
A very inbred dysfunctional Manson family.
Right. Like Judaism, you can see him. He's the xenophobic, psychopathic, sociopathic father who is contemptuous of his first son, Christianity, who's done nothing but try to live up to the violent upbringing he's had within Judaism by his inquisitions and his crusades and, all of the other nefarious deeds he's committed to try and impress his sick father. And then the younger brother comes feeling inferior to his older brother, who's now retired and is now just basically a hedge fund manager, a dishonest hedge fund. And Islam's like, Papa, I can please you. Look. And out comes ISIS, and don't tell me they're not related directly to the Quran. They are. They're perfect. They're the embodiment. They're the embodiment of the Quran. ISIS. They represent the core ethos of the Quran. That is, convert or die. That is the unsophisticated philosophy of Islam.
Yeah.
Now, the way to make Islam look more palatable and the way to exist in, say, a modern secular society is to cherry-pick the hell out of the Quran. You can do that. And you can also try and change the Arabic meanings of the words to make them not like, for example, Surah 434, which says beat your wife and everything like that if she disobeys you, and beat her until she submits. It's not beat, it's tap. Oh, no, it's not beat, it's just little bang. Just a little bang. Just give her a little, No, I'm sorry, it doesn't make it any better, and that's not exactly what it was. That's not the meaning. And you can see the meaning was interpreted through the Islamic hadith, in which a woman comes to Muhammad and her face is so green from being beaten by her husband that she's just bashed up, basically. It was greener than the veil she was wearing, according to the hadith. Her face. And what does Muhammad say? He doesn't say, I'm going to tell your husband off. He says, go back and submit to your husband and he'll stop beating you. That ties directly back to Surah 434. I mean, you have all these cases, and you have the case of Muhammad's child bride, Aisha, who was alleged to have made the statement in, I think it's the Sahih Muslim or the Sahih Bukhari, I can't remember which Sahih Hadith it is, but it's a Sahih Hadith, which means it's a reliable. Sahih is an Arabic word which means reliable. So apparently it's one we can rely on because the Hadiths are graded from reliable to unreliable, which is quite curious for a body of religious texts that will discard those because they're not reliable. We'll get rid of them then. They keep them anyway.
No. Anyway, this holy book isn't reliable. No, we'll keep it. We'll keep it. It's good. It's good. It's just unreliable.
It's just unreliable.
But my opinion is that the entire Quran, all the hadiths, none of them are sahih. All right, they're all unreliable.
They're all unreliable.
Anyway, from this Sahih Muslim, I think it is off the top of my head. Okay, Aisha is recorded as saying, allegedly, that no women suffer as badly as the believing Muslim women do. I've seen no women suffer as badly as the believing Muslim women. But this is a confession straight from Muhammad's child bride, who he beat, because she also records that he struck me and it caused me great pain. So, no, it's the retarded little brother of Christianity who is the dysfunctional son of the psychopathic father, Judaism.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's a good breakdown of all three.
In my opinion, yeah.
I think we have a name for the episode, too.
Just to not, I don't want to disclude anyone. So also Buddhism's pish as well. Okay.
Yeah, Hinduism sucks.
Hinduism shit. Hinduism, and I've got Hindu family members because my wife's Indian. She's a non-believer like me. She was born an evangelical Christian. Her father's a minister, was a minister. He's not anymore. But yeah, they're Indian, and so we've got Hindu family. And I tell them this: it's pish, it's bullshit. The religion's crap. But yeah, they just smile nicely and think, "You've got." I'm like, yeah, right. But yeah, so religion's pretty shit.
Yeah, religion's pretty shit. I think that's the title of the episode.
Now I'm getting back to what you were saying.
Yeah,
human rights. Yeah, sorry. Like I said, I'm all over the place. My wife said, "Have you ever watched The Good Wife?"
The Good Wife?
Yeah, the movie, the show,
the TV show.
I haven't.
Yeah,
I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
I won't let my wife watch it.
Okay, well, there's this redheaded lawyer. Yeah, there's this redheaded lawyer in the show, and she's really scattered, but she has these real good insights. Like she wins the case because, I don't know, she comes out of a scatter just in time to kind of win the case. And my wife was saying that that's how I think, that I'm really scattered, but I have these little moments of lucidity, of lucid thought. And she said, yeah, that's how my thinking style is. That's why I write books, because I can go back and edit all the scatter out and come up with something that's slightly coherent.
Yeah, I was actually reading the Gospel of Atheism and Free Thought, and it's very one-shot kind of ideas, memes almost.
The first two parts are. The first part, the Book of Atheism, is all that, memes and quotes I've constructed. The Book of Free Thought, the same. It's all memes and quotes. But then you get into the Book of Heresy, which comprises the largest part of the book. And that's well-researched, detailed, well-cited essays and articles on everything.
Okay, yeah, I haven't got that far. But
yeah, the pedophile
Muhammad,
to the Virgin ISIS, to the nuts and bolts of the Christian scam, which I compare Christianity to a textbook scam using elements that I've derived comprise textbook scams. And so I've done all that. And I've used historical research and everything, theological research to come up with those kind of essays. But yeah, blasphemy, human rights.
That's right, blasphemy laws.
I started the organization in April of this year, and quite quickly I got the support of Pat Condell, Dawkins, Harris, Ricky Gervais, and a few other notable. Roseanne Barr, don't forget Roseanne. Yeah,
nice.
She's got some
what about Oprah? You got Oprah?
No.
No Oprah yet, eh?
I wrote a meme attacking Oprah about her statement about atheists can't experience the order of the natural world.
I remember that.
Yeah, so
I have a feeling your books won't make it onto her book club.
No, but it would be so fun if I did.
That would be excellent.
Hilarious.
That would be one episode I'd want to watch.
I'd love to just scream atheism and jump up on the sofa like what's his name?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right.
It makes you fly. That'd be awesome.
That would be great.
I think I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, but no, I started the organization back, and we're petitioning the UN to revise some of the charter. The charter is the foundation of the United Nations, to include not only freedom of religion, but more importantly, freedom from religion. Because you can't truly have freedom of religion unless you have freedom from religion.
Unless you're protected
from exactly.
Yeah.
Not practically speaking, you can't.
They are practically the same thing.
Look at Pakistan is a great example. Pakistan, you have freedom of religion, right? But the majority are Muslim. So if you look at the blasphemy cases that exist in Pakistan, 60% of them are filed against Ahmadi Muslims, which is a minority sect of Muslims. They don't believe Muhammad was the final prophet. They're filed against Ahmadi Muslims and Christians. Now, Ahmadi Muslims and Christians together as a demographic is put together make about 3% of the entire population of Pakistan. So you have 60% of blasphemy charges being laid against 2% of the population.
Right.
So how is that freedom of religion? That's not at all. Mm-hmm. Simply for enunciating their scripture. If they speak their scripture in public, for example, John 3:16, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, is blasphemy in Islamic countries. Because God doesn't beget, God doesn't have sex. So that's a blasphemy in Islamic countries. So how can you have freedom of religion unless you have freedom from religion? And that's why we're railing against the blasphemy laws. But we're what you'd call a popular organization. There are more, I'd say, serious organizations that are in contact with the repertoires of human rights, for example, like the New York Humanist Movement or the Humanist Movement New York, the International Humanist Movement. There's Atheist Ireland, and we're working with Atheist Ireland. We're working with the president, Michael Nugent, who I've been on a few podcasts with, to lobby the UN. And he goes to Geneva and presents cases against blasphemy laws, because Ireland is the only Western democracy that's enacted blasphemy laws in the 21st century. The rest are hangovers that are still on the books, but Ireland has gone out of the way to create new ones, which I think they're soon going to have a referendum on, but who knows how that's going to turn out. So, Michael Nugent's done some great work. I also went on an interview with Sanal Edamaruku. I don't know if you've heard of him.
The name doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, have you heard of the Guru Busters in India?
I've actually heard of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
They went around busting alleged miracles and things like that, and shamans' tricks and things like that.
Oh, maybe.
Anyway,
that sounds familiar.
It was spearheaded by the head of the Indian rationalists, Sanal Edamaruku, and he would go around. There's some great stories from when he was going around busting these yogis and these religious men. He's an atheist, I said rationalist, so I guess it's implied. Anyway, there was this one time where this yogi said he could kill people with his mind. And so Sanal's like, all right, I'll take the challenge. Try and kill me with your mind and we'll film it, right? So if you can actually – and this guy who said he can kill people with his mind had been given tons of money in donations. They got tons of followers in India. And so Sanal said, right, the absurdity's gone far enough. Let's do it. Let's film it. If you can kill me with your mind, we'll film it, and then you'll get – widespread fame and everything. Anyway, the guy tried for 2 hours, building up a sweat. He's like, really, I imagine this guy just sweating and shaking. And Sanal said he was just laughing the whole way through. Like, he's just laughing, right? And so at the end, the yogi.
So he really believed he could kill people with his mind. Is that
right?
Like,
we should be getting him some help.
Yeah, like he really needs.
Well, it's like my favorite comedian. People that say they have these skills are either lying or mentally ill.
Yeah, that's right. But the best part of this guy's excuse was at the end when he gave the excuse why he couldn't kill Sanal. He got to the end and he just gave up. And he said, "You must have very powerful gods protecting you." And Sanal said, "But I'm an atheist." So, oh my God. So anyway, that was one story. But anyway, Sanal, to get to the relevant point, Sanal debunked a miracle of the Catholic Church in Mumbai. It was this statue of Jesus that started dripping water. And so the priest was getting the water, putting it in his hand and on a spoon and giving it to parishioners to drink. And they started making leaflets and called it the miracle, and it was attracting crowds. And so Sanal went there with the rationalists, and they found that the source of the water was a broken pipe at the back of the statue, which was connected to a sewerage tank. So basically, sewerage water had been pouring out on the back of the statue. No one bothered to check the back of the statue.
Yeah.
Down the feet, and people have been drinking shit, basically, shit water. And the priests have been handing this out. So did Sanal get rewarded for this service to humanity? No. Under India's penal code, I think it's 295, I can't remember off the top of my head, he was charged with blasphemy.
Yeah.
And was going to be imprisoned and was attacked by a bunch of Christians, physically attacked. He was in danger. So he fled to Finland, and now he has to live in exile in Finland.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's no longer in India, right, because of that.
No, he's in Finland.
Yeah.
And so he's a great supporter of our organisation as well. And so with regards to blasphemy laws, I went on a podcast with him as well. And DM Murdoch, incidentally. Let's go back to DM Murdoch now. She happens to be the co-chair of my organisation.
Okay.
To round it all out to the beginning of the interview. How good was that?
Nice.
Yeah, so anyway, she's railing against blasphemy laws as well, and yeah, she's been a really big help. I mean, she helped me edit the petition letter, and she's been brilliant. But so that's what we're doing with regard, and we've got a lot of support from Dawkins. He's posted us a few times, he's retweeted us. He follows me on Twitter, so occasionally when I post these anti-blasphemy, sign our petition, which currently has over 12,000 signatures. To abolish blasphemy laws, he will retweet it and send it around and encourage people to sign it. And that's been a huge help. And Ricky Gervais as well has helped us out by posting this on his Facebook page and on his Twitter and getting the word out. So, yeah, we've had some good success. But at the moment, things are a bit slow, but hopefully they'll pick up soon. We've formed an alliance with the International Humanist Organization, the New York branch, so that looks good. And we've got a blog going where we have authors writing blogs for us about apostasy laws and blasphemy laws and these sorts of inhumane laws. And so, yeah, things are going pretty well.
You were talking about that crying statue. Did you see what happened a few weeks ago in the States with the blowjob Jesus statue?
I heard about that. Did he get prison time?
No, but and that's what I was getting at. The fact that he was threatened with prison time. The U.S. might not have blasphemy laws, but that doesn't stop the judges from having their own internal blasphemy laws.
I don't know what the end result was, but he was facing 2 years for that.
He was banned from social media for a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
But
do you know what the
facing
charge
jail
was?
time.
Pardon me?
What was the charge?
Trespassing? That's the only thing you could charge him with, I think.
No, it was some kind of defacing charge. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was
because
it was a defacement charge or some stupid thing.
See, what I'd like to do is start a movement where everybody goes and gets pictures of themselves getting hand chamois or whatever from statues of Jesus.
Well, there was an article that came out where they showed a bunch of people similar pictures, but it was just in this one place for whatever reason. Someone got their panties in a bunch, and that's what happened.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people do the same thing to Ronald McDonald statues all the time.
Yeah, and I tried to start a Bombard Pakistan with blasphemy movement. It hasn't taken off yet, but basically I want everyone to send to the courts in Lahore in Pakistan and to the Supreme Court and everything like that, the government, the parliament. I want everyone to start sending blasphemous images of Muhammad because of their blasphemy laws, and because right now they're sitting on death row a Christian woman called Asia Bibi, which you may have heard about, who there's no evidence that she committed blasphemy, and she's facing the death penalty. You know, this is just absurd. I mean, and
sure. It's obscene.
And the Punjab governor, Salman Taseer, who came to her defense, was assassinated years ago for coming to her defense and for speaking out against blasphemy laws. Basically, anyone in Pakistan who speaks up against blasphemy laws will be killed or beaten or imprisoned or, the legal system in Pakistan is almost non-existent. It's the mullahs will show up, the Muslim mullahs will show up to court, and so the judge will be forced to either flee or produce a verdict that pleases them because they rile up the crowds, and there's no justice. In Pakistan should be kicked out of the UN, in my opinion, and that's pretty harsh. I understand, but until you reform your laws, until you start exercising human rights, and Saudi Arabia too, who the hell put them on the Committee for Protecting Women's Rights? That's what they're on that committee on the UN. Can you
really?
Yeah,
that seems kind of unbelievable.
It boggles my mind.
The criminal charge of that kid in Pennsylvania apparently is desecration of a venerated object.
See, that's a blasphemy law. That's another species.
That's
also
specifically a blasphemy law.
Yeah.
That's a blasphemy
Pennsylvania,
law.
Which is it's kind of a weird.
It's a butthurt law.
Yeah.
That's unconstitutional. That law, according to America's constitution, is technically unconstitutional.
Well, there's lots of American laws that are unconstitutional, like who's allowed to run for political office.
Yeah.
You have to have a faith.
Yeah, there are
in a lot of places.
That's not.
There are still
that's not
states
in.
that have
That's
that.
not in writing. You have to have.
Yes, it is.
In some states.
Really?
I'll show it to you. I have it at home.
Okay, that one I have to be
Many states, senators. You can't be a governor in a lot of places without. It doesn't say you have to be Christian. You just have to bow down to the power of the Creator or something like that.
Okay, that one I've never seen or heard. But I know in practice that's the way it works. But
Maine actually just had to revamp theirs or something because they got taken to the court.
Yeah, there was 36 counts of that in federal state laws.
But in the States, they at least have the FFRF. In other countries, there is no Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm curious, how involved with Atheist Alliance International are you?
They wrote once, and I wrote back, and that's as far as we've gotten. Who's the leader? Stephen, someone?
I think they got a new president. She's actually from Canada here. Christina, I can't remember her last name. I'm sorry if she happens to listen to this.
No, I'm not involved with Atheist Alliance International, but I would like to be. I'd like to form more alliances, particularly with.
Yeah, like they seem to be a major organization, so.
They are, yeah. I'd like to get more aligned with them and more aligned with the British humanists and these kinds of organizations that have direct access to the UN, because I think it'd be really good if we all networked together and pushed as a single force against these types of religious-inspired laws. And religious people have no business governing human beings. Let them govern over their own imaginations, fine. I'm not going to intrude upon their imagination, that's fine. But don't govern over real terrestrial events, please, because you're just not living here with us.
They should only have focused. Their coloring books in their box of crayons.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Go sit in the corner. Shh. Yeah, no.
No, we have company. We have company coming over. You have to stay in your room.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Sounds
you
like
open their door and there's just crosses and stars and moons all over the wall. And all right, you stay in here. I'll bring you some tea in a minute. It's like no. They have no business governing, in my opinion. Religious people, if they're going to use their religion as a source of governance, you see what happens. It's Pakistan, it's Saudi Arabia, it's the Christian medieval period, even prior to that and after that. It's just, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't. We've tried it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, we're watching it be tried right now. It's not working.
No.
Yep. Next.
Yeah.
What we need is an increased secularism. We need increased rationalism. We need to stop having, and many atheists are infected with this stupid idea as well, that we can't have a better system of morality than religion can provide. And you'd be shocked that many atheists have this idea. But they don't think that science should be allowed to enter the realm of discussing morality. Well, I think science should have a say in morality. And I don't mean science as in clinical science, as in, I guess we have to define what we mean by science. I mean by the method of science, that is investigation, forming hypothesis, using evidence to establish the best result to increase well-being for the majority of our species, for our species.
So logical morality.
Right. So, and to give you an example of that, and this is an example that Sam Harris gives in his book, The Moral Landscape, which is a great example. Look at schools. Even now, I think there's 21 states or so in the US that have corporal punishment, that you can beat kids with sticks and stuff like that. And I was beaten with sticks when I was in school. And, yeah, it's not nice and it's not good, especially in front of other kids. It does cause psychological harm. Studies have been done, okay? But yet that morality quote unquote morality, comes from the Bible, from Proverbs. Spare the rod, spoil the child. And even though that's not an accurate rendition of that thing, that maxim, has been taken from Proverbs. So we have this biblical morality being played out, especially in the southern schools in America. I don't want to talk about the south of America too much because that to me is like the Saudi Arabia of the West. That's crazy down there, right? Anyway, a lot of nice people. Just crazy religious people too. But yeah, so look at that morality. Beating children with sticks. That's biblical morality. That's religious morality, and not just Christianity. A lot of religions have this type of severe punishment of children. But then you look at the scientific studies that have been done and the psychological studies that have been done, and that point to the fact that this can scar the child. This can cause detriment, not just for the child, but for later on for the people that this child comes in contact with, because he'll have this or she'll have this mode of dealing with.
It actually creates more violent people.
And it creates more violence, and it's been shown to, scientifically, through studies, it's been shown. So what's happened? Many schools are banning that practice. And now you can be sued. So that's science governing morality. That's science now saying, all right, we've done the tests, we've checked it out, we've looked at the evidence, you can no longer beat your kid because it's harmful to not only the child but to society as well. But if we walk down and we say that, well, religion should be allowed to deal with our ethics and science should be allowed to deal with only what we can observe in the natural world and da-da-da-da-da, then you have, I think it just creates an insanity. Mm-hmm. It creates a disconnect between reality and what's best for our species and craziness. So I don't know. I can't explain it correctly right now. But, yeah, I think science should be allowed to step into the moral arena a lot more, in my opinion.
Well, it does seem to be the best vehicle for correct information, and making informed decisions is as important to morality as it could be to anything. So,
right? And science is also self-correcting, and you can change. Like, for example, if a theory or a hypothesis is debunked, science doesn't get defensive about that. Mm-hmm. Science relishes that. That's gold to science.
Yes, that's advancement. That's progress.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But you do that to religion, oh my God. And you've got screaming and kicking and wailing and gnashing of teeth. Like, it doesn't work the same.
That's the sound of it slowly dying.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's cognitive dissonance being being manifested through bad behavior on it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good sign. The consequences of it suck, but it's a good sign. Makes me hopeful.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if you're not pissing off religion, you're not doing it right.
Exactly right. And that's my ethos for my work. People have criticized my work for being too antagonistic, too ridiculed too much. But I think these tools are very important for the anti-theist.
We've got
I think ridicule, shaming the belief. I don't try to shame the believer. I'm shaming the belief. And consequently, of course, the believer is going to feel some impact from that. Mm-hmm. But if the ego can recover. Okay, this is all it's about. Right? It's about the ego, the ego of the believer, the hypersensitive religious ego. If it's offended and it's proven wrong and it falls to its knees and accepts that it's wrong, the ego will recover. Okay, and subsequently as a species will advance, and also another flow on from that is the individual who's fallen to their knees admitted that their religious belief was wrong and now developed past that has got personal growth. It's a win-win. The only thing we're so protective, this political correctness and this not offending religious beliefs and things like that, it's so insane because it's just protecting ego. That's all it's protecting. When the detriment of turning a blind eye to it is allowing stoning, is allowing,
That's actually a point that even I haven't even heard like from Sam Harris or like from like some of the stauncher atheists. Like they don't say, well, it's just your feelings are going to get hurt rather.
He touches on it in his book, The Moral Landscape, but not I guess not in the way I've put it. But yeah, essentially that's what the point boils down to, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's feelings versus the well-being of our society, the well-being of certain people who are targeted by religions. And a lot of these people are religious themselves. They just happen to be born in the wrong religion. And I say wrong religion, I mean the religion that is, for example, being born Christian in Pakistan.
Right, yeah, luck. Being the wrong religion or the minority religion in a specific area.
Well, it's a geopolitical thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we need to get over our feelings, and we need to grow up and suck it up and get over ourselves.
Yes, we do. A lot of the ways media covers things is also detrimental. When they say that somebody's insulting Islam or insulting Christianity, you can't insult a belief. It doesn't have any feelings.
Okay, it's time for a bit of a break from the chatting. Gumby was lucky enough to get permission from one of his and my favorite bands to use their song. So here it is, 10 Seconds from Panic by A Cult to Follow.
My truth is heavy as I choke, complacent as I struggle to breathe. Your noose wrapped around my throat. Confession, never wanna be the nameless, the faceless, the godless, the racist, the helpless, the loveless, the voice of the faithless. I choose to sever all my suffering. Until then, I'm 10 seconds from panic. Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again. No, nothing could help me live through this. The memory of my sins. My truth is heavy as I choke, complacent as I struggle to breathe. Your noose wrapped around my throat. Confession, never wanna be the nameless, the faceless, the godless, the racist, the helpless, the loveless, the voice of the faithless. I choose to sever all my suffering. Until then, I'm 10 seconds from panic. Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again. No, nothing could help me live through this. The memory of my son. I wanna break a motherfucker out the seconds from the hate. Incorporated with the panic. I can't fake this. I know you never did, so forget it. Here we go. Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again. No, nothing can help me live through this. The memory of my... Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again. No, nothing could help me live through this. The memory of my sin. Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again. No, nothing could help me live through this. The memory of my sin.
A lot of the ways media covers things is also detrimental. When they say that somebody's insulting Islam or insulting Christianity, you can't insult a belief. It doesn't have any feelings.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have any rights.
No, that's right.
It shouldn't have any rights.
What's that meme? People have rights, not ideas. Yeah.
But the what do you call it? The meme or the slogan of our organization is human rights above human beliefs.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
And that's where we should be. The welfare of the human being is much more significant than the welfare of an idea. If the idea can't take care of itself, the idea doesn't deserve to be preserved. It's like Robert Ingersoll once said. I think he said that these blasphemy laws they were invented by priests to take care of doctrines that can't take care of themselves. These beliefs can't take care of themselves because once they're faced with scientific inquiry, they fall down crying and they fall flat. They're useless. But we have blasphemy laws and they keep stupid ideas in play.
Yeah, I agree with blasphemy laws, but the laws should be there to protect your right to be blasphemous.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah. You mean pro-blasphemy, not anti-blasphemy law.
Yeah, right, pro-blasphemy. Right. Free speech.
Yeah, we would just call that free speech, I think.
No, I specifically want laws that guarantee my rights to be an utter asshole about religion.
You should. And that isn't that a great thing, though? Let's be assholes about religious beliefs. They're just beliefs.
That's right.
Let's be nice to people. Let's be, don't ad hominem attack people. Yeah, let's not hurt people. Let's hurt beliefs. Beliefs deserve to be dragged over the coals and eviscerated because that's how we progress. We dissect beliefs. We take bits that we like from them, bits that work for us. We add them to other things, and we create new concoctions and we advance. But religion doesn't advance. It doesn't. It's not interested in advancing. It's stagnated belief that keeps us in the age wherever the authors were. Which is, it's past. It's gone.
Yeah, that's right.
Let go.
It would die faster if it had to stand on its own merits or lack thereof, rather than being bolstered by legislation. That's for sure.
And if we weren't such an emotionally driven species as well. We're still relatively a new species when you think about it over the gamut of evolution. We're still quite a new species. And so we're still emerging from the plains of Sahara where a rustle in the bushes. Is it a predator? Is it just the wind? We didn't have time to make that rational sort of assessment. We had to get the hell out of there. So we developed a brain that developed beliefs quickly and for emotional reasons, for survival reasons. But we no longer need those anymore, but they're still hangovers. They're a bit like our appendix in our mind. They're the appendix of the mind, religious beliefs.
The appendix of the mind.
Yeah?
Oh, for sure. Fear of God is just the evolved fear of fire or fear of the predator, right?
Yeah,
or removal of the appendix.
Yeah.
Yes. It's also the sedative, because the afterlife and all these sort of beliefs, it's a sedative that we've developed to reconcile our mortality as well. And we need to just come to the realization that we're going to die. And it's not a bad thing to die. I love my sleep. I can't imagine, when I go to sleep finally and no one's kicking me in the morning trying to wake me up.
I don't have to wake up? That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do that now.
No.
That's not quite right. Yeah.
If we didn't very likely have only one life, maybe going to sleep now permanently would be a good idea. But since, very likely we only have one. Maybe we should live it. We will die eventually anyway.
Fear of immortality, we should be basking in your mortality. It's stupid.
Yeah, exactly. If this life is the only one we get, and I think it's probably the case.
Yes.
You can't say it is the case because we don't know.
That's right.
I mean, you're offending epistemology by trying to assert that there's no afterlife,
Precisely.
or that there's no God,
precisely,
or that there's no pink unicorn that created everything.
Sure.
You can't say that the premise of Toy Story was not built on a real story, based on a real story. You can't say that because you don't have epistemological permission to say these things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should believe them either. I don't believe Toy Story was built based on a real story.
No, I don't either.
I don't believe that Yahweh is the God of the universe and created light before he created the sun accidentally. It seems like a little bit of a slip up there. I don't believe all these that our mortality is derived from the plot of a cunning walking and talking snake that tricked a stupid rib woman to trick her equally stupid dirt husband to eat a stupid piece of fruit that now we're all punished for. I think that's a very stupid belief. But I can't say that it's wrong. I can say it's more than likely wrong.
When you were talking about the virgin birth earlier, it just reminded me that I think it was just yesterday or the day before, there was a virgin birth in a zoo with a snake. So that would be the second coming of Satan.
Oh, God. Oh, here they come.
It actually was a virgin birth of a snake. It was the only one of those snakes they had in that zoo.
It's called parthenogenesis.
Right. I just think it's funny that it happened to a snake, and it's been documented. So that would be the second coming of Satan.
Check Ray Comfort's website every day because I'm pretty sure it's gonna appear on there. It's gonna make an appearance on there.
That would require
they're
actually
twist it to Revelation. They're going to twist it to Revelation, no doubt. Oh God.
Back to the epistemological problem. I think there's some things we can say for sure. I'm rather sick of people talking about a God that will torture me and yet loves me. Right?
Yeah.
To me, that's a contradiction in terms.
Oh, come on.
We say of that God that it makes no sense. It doesn't exist.
Could exist. It's just God is into S&M. Where's leather bondage gear? Come on.
Okay, here's an argument that the beauty of my position right now is that I get to discuss these issues with my father-in-law, who's a theologian who went to seminary school, and he shows me all of the best apologetic arguments against all these rational arguments.
Wonderful.
And they're so slippery. Like, they're so slippery. Like, I laugh. Like, he'll be halfway through an explanation and I'll just be in stitches just laughing. This is that one, right? This is one of the ones against how can an all-loving God be so cruel? Right. You know, the old Epicurus problem as well. It ties into the old the problem of Epicurus.
Yeah.
How can evil exist in the face of an all-loving and all-knowing creator? Either he can't prevent it and therefore he's impotent, or he can prevent it and he doesn't, therefore he's malign. You can't get over that problem, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, there are a few different ways around that. There's the divine command theory, which is everything God does is moral.
That's
whether it
William
appears
Lane
immoral
Craig
to us or not. Right? This is the choice of theory for the psychopath.
Yeah.
Right? This is the psychopath's choice of theory. And this is to get around the Euthyphro dilemma as well.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Euthyphro dilemma?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm a philosopher for what it's worth.
Oh, there you go. So you know well. You know better than I do. That the Euthyphro dilemma, is it moral because God commands it, or was it already moral and God commanded it because it was moral?
Yeah.
And so to get around that, they bring up divine command theory, which ties into the excuse for why would God do these things to me if he loved me. God, you can't perceive God in his full glory and amazing intelligence, and all of his motivations are so beyond your puny little perception that just because him killing all of your family appears ruthless to you, the pea-brained human, doesn't mean it actually is. It could be the most loving thing he's ever done. Because we don't... Wait, I'm not finished, right?
I'm so sorry. Please continue.
I know, I'm trying not to laugh at this, all right? And so he's bestowed this gift upon you of killing your daughter, your 5-year-old daughter, in front of your eyes by letting her be hit by a truck. He's killed your son by making him fall off your roof right in front of your feet where his head exploded all over your feet.
Totally for the benefit of you. That was
He's killed your wife and your family and everything in a Job-like fashion, even though you were very faithful and loving to God, and you were a credulous moron, so God really loved you. But this is God's way of showing his love. This life that we live now is just one little glimpse of this massive, long, eternal awesomeness that you're going to experience. And because you had to experience this suffering, God is going to love you even more in the afterlife.
I'll pass.
So will I, obviously. Any rational person would. Right?
Yeah.
But these are the types of slippery things they bring up.
Yeah.
If that's God's love.
But what is love if it's not communicated to the person? This is my argument against that. You can't love me unless you understand my language of love. Mm-hmm. All right? And if a God, being omniscient, can't understand that my language of love forbids the killing of my child, don't show me love by killing me my child. That doesn't I don't interpret that as love, therefore you're not being loving to me, because that's how I read love. So you need to be able to sell it to me like I read it. If I can't read your love in a communicable manner, then that's not love to me.
Yeah. Well, that really is the meaning of it.
There are subjective components to love, right?
Yeah, but you can't really get around that, I don't think.
What do you mean?
I think that's the meaning of it, right there. If someone, if someone's killing your child, they're not loving you. You know, torturing you for eternity isn't loving you because you don't interpret that as love, and that
unless
does
you're a psychopath
matter.
and you want your son dead.
Yeah, but
So let's take
psychopaths,
that as a hypothetical.
that's just it. They don't love.
It's totally overly attached God.
Yeah, overly attached God.
Let's take it to the subjective element. If you're a psychopath who hates your child and you want them dead, and someone does that for you, then that then becomes an expression of love, right?
Perhaps.
I know it's twisted.
Some would contest that, I think.
No, but think about it, right? If you are crazy in the head, right? You're a psychopath, and for some reason you resent your child. You have some complicated psychological issue, and you want to commit filicide yourself, but you can't do it for whatever reason, and someone does that for you, and they know you want them to do that, but they know you're incapable of doing it. That becomes an expression from them to you of love. They're doing something for you. That that's a crazy twisted example.
Yeah, because it's based on the way you interpret it. Exactly.
So if God can't interpret that killing my child is not love to me, then God is a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Or not real.
Right?
Yes.
Or not real.
And that's a twisted example, but I think it. Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I'm always
a good one.
Back home when I was younger, I had actually a discussion with the one of the main priests in Weyburn, and my question to him is: if God's all powerful, how come we don't just see him whenever we want or whenever any time? How come he's just not just standing there, 400 feet tall, just watching everything? And the answer was you can't see God because he's so powerful and omnipotent. And I said, well, if he's omnipotent, wouldn't that mean that he could do that? Like whatever he wants? Wouldn't he want his creation to see him?
Well, Moses saw him allegedly. He saw his backside anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Little inappropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was when you look in the tabernacle, you'll die, and because God, you can't behold God because it's just too amazing and glorious. And you start looking at the solar mythology that went into these religions. That, don't look directly into the sun; it's too awesome. And you see that a lot of solar mythos was tailored into these religions. And you'll see the solar motif throughout, not just the aspects of, I say, Jesus Christ that are mythical or legendary. The Son of Righteousness, as I think it was Clement of Alexandria may have dubbed him. I think it was Clement of Alexandria, dubbed him the Son of Righteous, S-U-N, of Righteousness. And you see all these throwbacks to solar mythos in the Christ myth. You see it in the Yahweh mythos. You see it throughout the Bible, throughout the Old Testament. And that's because religions aren't created in a vacuum. They're created within culture that is influenced by other cultures. And Judaism is no exception. Judaism was right in smack bang in the middle of massive empires, of Mesopotamia, of Egypt, of Persia, of Greece, of these empires that all had a big impact on the mythos of the Old Testament that appears in various books of the Old Testament. And so you see that solar mythology, and it's the fact that, getting back to your argument, you can't see God because he's too powerful, well, that's just bullshit. That's a shit argument.
Exactly. Right? That was my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went around the long way.
No.
That's all right. That's good.
The long way is good.
The long way is good.
We are here to talk shit, and specifically, we're all anti-theists here. So.
Well, and we actually hope that some theists eventually listen, and you have to kind of take the long way around with some of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And if they've learned something, then that's good. And if they've just had a laugh, then that's equally as good.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, when you look at all the work that goes into secularism and anti-theism, Isn't it sad that it takes so much to just try to disprove something that doesn't exist?
I think it's sad. Yeah, it's sad because it has real tragic consequences in many cases.
Yeah,
it's fun because it has humorous consequences as well, i.e. Ken Ham versus Bill Nye.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a fun side of it and there's a serious tragic side of it too. So, yeah, it depends.
Which is,
how you
again,
look at it.
why you have the organization Human Rights for Atheists, right?
That's right, human rights for atheists, agnostics, and secularists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. But we also have to keep our sense of humor, I think, because especially with the books I'm writing and with the research I do, I mean, I've read through a large portion of Christian history and it just leaves you with this sticky, dark feeling about humanity. And then I've read through, looking at the Muslim conquests, I've read through all of the blasphemy cases, not all of them, but many of the blasphemy cases from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and these Islamic countries today. Again, it leaves you with a very dark and sticky, terrible feeling. You just want to have a shower. And so you need to keep your sense of humor when you're dealing with all this. Otherwise, you just get too cynical and too pessimistic. And I'm fairly cynical of humanity as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly cynical, I think. But at the same time, I see humanity as the genius child sitting up the back of the class, picking his nose and throwing spitballs at the teacher. Like, we've got such a great potential as a species, but we're just squandering it, I think, in many cases.
For sure. At this point, anyway.
Yeah.
It actually keeps me up at night thinking how far advanced we could be at this point without
Constantine, for example.
Right.
Making his declaration.
Yeah, thanks, Constantine. Appreciate that.
But if not Constantine...
it would have been something else, for sure.
Then something else, right? Mithraism, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
or some other pish that would
something else holding us back, some kind of beliefs.
There'd be Aoists or Odinists or...
Yeah, I look at the myth of early martyrdom in Christianity in the second volume in my series. And one of the things I don't forget to do is abuse the superstitious morons of the Roman Empire who attacked the Christians, Nero and his credulous mob and so forth. But I also expose the fact that the martyrdom of the early church wasn't as widespread as a lot of Christians make it out to be. And in a lot of the cases, the Christian martyrs were looking to be martyred. That is, they were provoking the authorities to be killed. And the authorities were like, there was one, I think his name was Antoninus. He was a proconsul, I think, of the Roman Empire in, can't remember the century. But anyway, he made the statement, "Oh, you unhappy men, why don't you just find nooses and precipices and just jump off and kill yourself? Why are you bothering us with all these theatrics?" Because the Christians were going out. They wanted to be martyred. And that's because the works of the early apostolic fathers that documented, say, the martyrdom of Polycarp and all that were really inspirational. Like, they promised you that don't worry about the flames, they'll be cool to your flesh and you'll get right up there, you get an express ticket to heaven next to Jesus. And it's just like the jihadis of today, isn't it?
Yeah, here's your bomb and your 42 virgins, go.
Exactly. And the same promises or similar promises were made to the early Christians.
On the virgins there. Supposed to be 72.
Yeah. Well, and that
there can't be that many virgins, man. Look how many of them they're throwing around. They got to cut it down.
In the Quran,
supply and demand, man.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Allah makes, because the earthly women are shit. Allah makes tailor-made women up in heaven.
So they don't even get the chance to come. Those are new people.
Yeah, it says so. It's either in the Hadith or the Quran. It says that Allah tailor-makes these trollops.
I didn't know that.
For the jihadis.
So they're virgins, but he gives them skills?
What do they put up there for women? What do they have in heaven for women?
I don't know. Conversation's just gone down this really bad path. And I'm trying to back out really quickly.
Welcome to every podcast we've done ever.
Yeah. We've sucked you into the hole that is the Brainstorm podcast.
It's okay. Corey's really good at editing in post.
No, that's all right. Don't edit it. I'm not a dishonest person, so don't edit it. But getting back to my point, that early martyrdom really profited the church. I mean, it really made Christianity appealing, especially to those societies that were annexed by the Roman Empire. They saw them as a counterculture, rebelling against this. So they just went and accepted Christianity, took on all the bullshit. And eventually, once you take on the bullshit, and I deal with this from a psychological point of view in the second volume too, once you commit to a belief, we have this drive to be consistent. It's a psychological drive to be consistent. So once we commit to a belief system, as these early ex-pagans did, I say pagans, it's a bad word, but anyway, as these ex-pagans did, then you are psychologically compelled to believe it fully to your core, believe it. And any contrary information that comes in and tries to attack that belief, your defense mechanisms will shield you from them, or I mean, as best they can. This is generally speaking. And so this is what you have, especially if you commit to that belief in front of witnesses, or you commit to something in front of witnesses, that has an increased psychological impact. And so that's why you'll see in modern day churches, would anyone like to come down to the front and, convert and witness? And that's what they do. They make you do it in front of people. This is a psychological thing, and I've noted the psychological studies that reiterate this point, that when you do things in front of witnesses, you have a drive to be consistent, even more than you do when you internally commit to something. And so that's part of the scam of Christianity that I point out to. And also in the third volume in my series, which goes to the editor in 3 weeks, I deal with hypnosis and trance induction and the church service, and I compare the 5 stages of a hypnotherapy session to the 5 stages you can find in the average church service. Of course, it's a very abstract, loose association, but you can find these associations in one form or another in both Catholic and Protestant churches, and especially the mega churches. These big mega churches are brilliant at it. They spend so much money on lighting, and I go into all lighting and how that works and how that impacts on the psyche. And I don't just draw on pish pseudo-scholars. I draw on real hypnotherapists. And hypnosis is not a pseudoscience. It is a very valid area of scientific investigation. And to back this up, it was on Mythbusters and passed the Mythbuster test. So I was really pleased with that, because I was like, I don't want any pish in my book. But, look at the hypnotherapy session and look at the church service, and I run through the 5 stages and bring in environmental psychology. I bring in all these areas of research to show that the people are going there to basically be trance-induced, have their subconscious mind directly accessed, have these beliefs further entrenched into their mind, go away, come back the next week and have a top-up, because a somnambulic trance will last for about a week. So you have the church service once a week, and it's just topping it up, isn't it? Every time you go, and you're staying entranced in this subconscious fantasy world, because the subconscious finds it very difficult to distinguish between fantasy and reality. That's why when you're in a dream, everything seems real. These people are living in dreams, in a quasi-dream state. And so I go into all that aspect in I Am Christ 3, the Ascension Understanding. But I think it's a fascinating area of research that I think more people need to go into. Yeah.
Renee, you looked like you were going to say something.
It's more like a lot of that's been done for for centuries. Like there's look at all the how they designed all the cathedrals and stuff in Europe. It was all designed to invoke awe and all those other kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, it's not a new
priming.
thing.
In psychology, it's one of the terms they use for it. You prime a person for the right kind of experiences.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's manipulation of symbols and all this other kind of stuff. So
I'm a car salesman.
And that priming is, I deal with that as well. It's a little subheading called "Have you seen my church hat?" Because when we go into a certain environment, there are certain expectations of how we'll behave, what we'll feel, what we'll do. And like at a football game, for example, you won't act the same if you're attending a football game as you will if you're attending a funeral. You won't cheer when the coffin's lowered and things like that. You might if you didn't like the person.
Well, if your team's losing, you're pretty somber.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, all right? But then again, if the person being lowered into the ground is someone you hated and you want everyone to know it, you're not going to be somber either. So, but yeah, that was, we're using loose examples here, okay? I'm just being general, all right? Don't hound me, man. Anyway, so different environments draw from us different behaviors, different patterns of thinking, different thought. And so this is why the churches have that. You walk into church, where's my church hat? This is under the subheading that I draw, that I utilize to explain this aspect of it. That once you're walking through those doors, that's the introduction to your trance. That's the precursor, that, as you're saying, you're being primed to go into an environment and to go into a certain state of mind. Yeah. And you'll see people in, especially the Protestant churches, the music's softly playing and their hands are up in the air waving, and the atmosphere that it creates. You're not immune. Even if you're an atheist, you walk into that atmosphere. Okay, you walk into the atmosphere. You don't believe all the shit. You are much more immune than a believer. But you walk into it and you will feel it, the atmosphere. And there's nothing divine about it. There's nothing supernatural. It's just the atmosphere created by the environment.
Well, you can get it from a good you can get it from a good rock concert too,
or the grocery store. There's a reason when you walk into the grocery store, you walk into the bakery department, and all of your sundries and your necessities are at the back of the store. It's the exact same thing.
I can almost see
by the cake.
Yeah, by the smell of fresh baked bread.
Yeah,
makes you hungry. You buy more food because you're hungry.
I can sort of see a connection between religion and marketing.
No, I actually
brought that up in my work as well.
I actually studied the logistics of grocery stores.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is all marketing, right? Yeah. It is all marketing.
In our grocery stores, the reason why a lot of grocery stores will have things like a pharmacy. When you go to get your prescription filled, they tell you it'll be 20 minutes. It takes them 2.
Yeah, 20
minutes so that you can walk around the grocery store and fill up your basket a bit more. It's the same thing. It's at a different level, obviously.
But my pharmacist is
similar. Sing some songs and then give us your money. And
well, the coloring of the walls, background music, same as a church.
If they're busy, it sometimes does take them 25 minutes for what it's worth.
Right. They're never busy at my grocery store.
But what they don't factor in is that people with kids like myself, I have 2 young children, our mission is to get in and get out super quick.
Yeah.
But I'm not discounting the validity of what you're saying with regards to the bread, because that's true. I'm just thinking about even the supermarkets here in Japan now. I'm thinking about them, and it's true. The bakery's always in the front, and it does. It makes me hungry, and I want to buy lots of food.
And your sundries, like your toilet paper, the stuff that's just your absolute necessities, are on the higher shelves. The sweets and the candies and the chips are at easy-to-reach levels for kids.
Actually, in Japan, they have whole aisles dedicated to candy and whole aisles dedicated to say.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah, so do we.
In Walmart, at least.
Somebody was on a podcast I was just listening to, mentioned that wherever they live, I'm not sure where, but they don't have chip aisles. Like, we go down the aisles and we have potato chips. The whole aisle is potato chips and junk food.
Or crisps or whatever.
Yeah.
You were going to draw...
Is it North Korea?
Oh, possibly.
Well, there's a reason, because they just don't have the stuff.
They don't have potatoes.
Yeah.
I can imagine North Korea just saying, no chips. But then, like, the head of Korea, his house is just stocked with chips.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. Jeez, eh?
We were drawing a parallel between marketing and
religion.
And religion, I think. You were saying you wrote about that.
Yeah, I have dealt with that in the nuts and bolts of the Christian scam. I looked at marketing and how things are marketed, and I made a little meme inspired by that research I did. And I've just got to try and remember my own words because I always forget. It's something like, along the lines that the secret to good marketing is to make you feel incomplete without the product, or to make the target feel incomplete without the product. Yes. Herein lies the success of religion.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? They've got a psychological product. What they do is they convince you, usually from a young age, which is very easy once you got someone at a young age, and they use people to warm sell to these children. And warm sell means when you're selling to someone you have a prior rapport with. Cold selling, as you probably know, is selling to someone you have no relationship with. Yeah. But religion is done through warm sales, that is, through the family. So it's like a pyramid scam.
I had to cut a bit out of this for legal protection reasons, so I figured I may as well throw in an ad or two. Audible.com is offering listeners of Brainstorm a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial membership. Membership gives you reduced prices on over 150,000 titles for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player, and costs $14.95 per month after the first free month. I just signed up a few weeks ago, and right now I'm listening to Your Deceptive Mind, a scientific guide to critical thinking skills with Dr. Stephen Novella from the Great Courses lecture series. For your 30-day free trial membership and free audiobook download, go to audibletrial.com/brainstorm. That's audibletrial.com/brainstorm. I'd also like to tell you about reasonistproducts.com. T-shirts and hoodies with science, reason, and atheist themes. They've got good prices and offer a buy one get one free deal with the coupon code BRAINSTORM. For a limited time, they're also offering a free T-shirt to Brainstorm listeners. Be the first person to tweet the word Brainstorm to them at Reasonist Products with no vowels in the word products. That's at Reasonist, PRDCTS, reasonistproducts.com.
And so religion uses that warm sales. Amway sold through friends and family who vouch for the product.
Yep.
Same as religion, and not always through the family, but sometimes close friends. And then you find people changing faiths at older ages, moving from one faith to another, which isn't hard because you're just basically rebooting the computer and changing the programming, which is pretty easy. But if it's done through someone you like, a friend, a close associate, that trust is already there. And if there are aspects of that person's character that you find admirable, and then you start associating those admirable characteristics with the religion, it becomes very easy to sell that religion to the new target. And so it's done through warm sales, and I draw all those analogies and bring in marketing experts like Stephen Key and others to show how these what would you call it, techniques of marketing are employed. And so I try to, in my work, bring together all these different fields of research and scholarship and thought and show where they're all connected. So, for example, everything my books deal with everything from pure marketing to hypnosis, hypnotherapy, psychology, archaeology, theology, philosophy, environment, all these different aspects, sociology, law even. And so I try to bring all these things, and I bring them into Smash Christianity, basically, in this 3-volume series that I wrote, and in the Gospel of Atheism with some of my essays. But
that starts with I Am Christ, right? Is the first one? I Am Christ is the first one?
Yeah, and I want to rewrite that because I'm not happy with it now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I don't buy it as shit.
So, is there going to be a recall then?
No. For what it's worth, all good writers say that about their work. But you shouldn't say that about your work. Because you want people to buy it anyway.
It's not shit. It's better than anything anyone could write in the world. But
compare it to the rest of your brilliant work.
Right.
It's shit.
No, it's got some little errors that I want to fix. And by little errors, like I said, let's get back to the beginning of this podcast. I'm not a scholar. I don't claim to be a scholar. So, for example, one thing that I did, which really bugs me when I read it again, and I just want to rip the page out, but I know it's not going to rip the page out of everyone who's ever bought it. I want to change the word pseudonymous. I use the word pseudonymous incorrectly with the Gospels. Pseudonymous literature is those referring to the pseudepigraphy, like certain letters of Paul and so forth, where they were written and deliberately passed off as being the work of a different author. So, for example, some anonymous authors, I think 2 Thessalonians is an example where an author who wasn't Paul passed it off as Paul's work. So in academic terms, when you say a work is pseudonymous, you're meaning that the author deliberately passed it off as someone else's work, whereas the Gospels are not pseudonymous. They're anonymous and were later falsely attributed to authors who didn't write them. But in my book, I said they're pseudonymous, and that really shits me when I read it. So that's an example of a little. So the spirit of the the word is correct. They are falsely attributed works.
Right.
I'm sure the total of the 3 people in the world that'll catch that, one of them being in this room, aren't going to care that much.
Yeah, that really shits me. That's one thing. And I think another thing is I put in a little, what I thought was a really clever technique, and in retrospect, it's been the biggest pain in my ass. What I wanted to do is, just before my chat on confirmation bias and disconfirmation bias and adaptational strategies that believers employ to keep beliefs intact, I put in little, what I call zingers. That is, for example, I referred to scientific dogma, Darwinism, and I use these little catchwords because I'm presenting all this anti-Christian and anti-theistic material, and in all that, the theist reader who's reading it, in my imagination at the time, I thought, well, they're going to read that, and then they're going to come across these little words that they really associate with and understand and like. And then when they go on to read the bit about confirmation bias, the smarter of the theist will say, that's what I'm doing when I read Darwinism, because I agreed with that, but I didn't agree with all this other shit that this asshole's saying about my religion. But I agreed with that, and I agreed with scientific dogma. Yes, science is dogmatic. I don't think any of these things. But I wanted to put those in there as little, like, theist traps, so that when they read on confirmation bias, the smarter theist will understand what's happening. And so now I'm regretting that immensely, putting that in. So when I rewrite it, I'm just going to take those bits out because it really pisses me off. But yeah. I feel like a weight's being lifted off my shoulders.
Because you said that out loud, eh?
All right, so
that's good.
So now just do 4 Hail Marys.
Yeah.
They say confession is good for the soul.
Jeez, you guys.
Well, set the record straight. Anyone who's listening knows the record has been set straight.
Yes.
But we should take a break, and I'll I guess let you go here.
All right.
Is there anything that you'd like to specifically tell us about before you go?
Well, I guess I could talk about one of the books I'm in the middle of at the moment, or nearly finished, getting close to finishing, is I haven't decided on the title, so I thought I'm finally coming on Brainstorm podcast, so I'll let you guys decide the title for me, right? I've got
That's
2
not
options.
a good idea.
No, you can't go wrong. It's all right. I've made sure that.
You're just giving us options. Okay.
Yeah, you're getting to choose between 2 very similar options. I'm writing a book called The 10 Parenting Tips for God, but it's either going to be called An Anti-Theist's 10 Parenting Tips for God or An Atheist's 10 Parenting Tips for God. Which one should I go with?
What are the tips?
Are they atheistic or are they anti-theistic?
They're very sarcastic. I'm calling God psychotic, and I'm showing the reasons why I'm calling him psychotic. I'm drawing from...
Personally, I would say the atheist's 10 parenting tips for God.
Yeah, probably atheist.
Personally.
I would
just
say
me.
the anti-theist.
Oh,
for two reasons. One, you're an anti-theist. And 2, I mean, infants are atheists. They're not theists.
Right.
Lots of things are not theists.
Or I would call it the non-theists book.
Yeah, well, that's atheist, right? So I would suggest anti-theist. We've got 2 atheists and 1 anti-theist right now.
I'd be kind of going atheist just simply because, well, from a more marketing standpoint, more people know what atheist is. Anti-theist comes across as really negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, what the hell
It's a very negative book.
Anti-theist all the way then.
Yeah, well, no. So you still want to grab their attention and for them to buy it before you find it.
You want to be honest, though. If it's negative and sarcastic, anti-theist. Because I know some really upbeat atheists. I don't know any upbeat anti-theists.
Have any of you guys read my Dear Islam apology?
No.
Don't think so.
Okay, well, if you get a chance, it's on my WordPress. The whole book is that tone. I'm apologizing to Islam because I was really told off by a lot of Western liberals, I call them, who were really upset that I said that the Quran will be less harmful if used as toilet paper. And I really copped a lot of shit for that from atheists, especially atheists.
Really? That's odd.
So I wrote an apology the whole book is that tone. It's extremely Voltaire-ish sarcasm. Nice. Voltaire had a brilliant sort of, means of delivering horrible, horrible insults in the most beautifully sarcastic way. And so I wanted that to be this book. So it's so lovely. Like, I speak so beautifully to God, and it's almost as if I believe it exists. So I'm addressing him. And after certain points that I make that, about filicide and killing your own children and how it does appear that you may be psychotic, but no offense. Right. I'm only giving you these tips so that you can improve as a parent, because I really care about you. I care about the way you're parenting our kids. And so it's a very nasty, polite and nasty.
It sounds almost like a comedy book.
It's good. That's what it's intended for.
Yeah.
But I draw from historical scholarship. I draw from theological. I draw from textual critics. I draw from the Bible itself, or a number of Bibles, because I have to get the right interpretation to make it funny. Because there's so many variations on each verse and passage that I need the ones that really say the things I want them to say. So I bring those in. It's a facetious book.
Well, if it's filled with Voltairean sarcasm, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it's a whole. I'm worried that it's going to be too much. Like, you put too much cheese on a cheese and ham sandwich. You're like, oh, that's just a bit too much cheese. That's what I'm worried about.
I don't understand that.
There's no such thing as too much cheese.
All right.
If my arteries don't agree with you, but I do.
If you have too much cheese, it's a problem of having too much ham. Get rid of some of the ham, more cheese.
All right. Yeah. So I still don't know if I'm going to call it the anti-theist or the atheist temperance.
Well, fair enough. We can help.
That's all right.
Actually, why don't you just leave that out and just make it a surprise for people? Just the 10 steps.
I preface it because there's a lot. There are a lot of stupid atheists out there. Let's be honest, who have knee-jerk reactions to certain things, and so. Some of the memes I've done, they're like, well, you're supposing God exists. No, I'm being facetious, you dickhead. Can't read that? Yeah. It's like, oh my God, if I have to point every single thing out.
Well, that's just it. You leave the front as just the 10 ways to raise your kid or whatever. And then at the very end of the book, that's where you put your disclaimer.
Or that's
after they've already read it.
Or that's the title of your book, On Being Facetious, You Dickhead.
Yeah, that might be good.
Yeah.
All right, well, I better get out of here.
Thanks for coming on. I'm glad we finally got you on here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I hope I didn't. I mean, I know I rambled, but I hope you can use some of it.
But sometimes there's nothing better than a good fucking ramble.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. All the relevant links will be posted in the show notes at brainstormblog.net. If you want to keep up to date with the show, come on over and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/brainstormpodcast or follow us on Twitter at brainstormpod. This show was recorded in Roman Empire Studios. If you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/brainstormpodcast and give $1 an episode. Or if that's too much, then go and give us a rating and write a review on iTunes or Stitcher. We finally got our first review on iTunes, and as a thank you, I'll be sending a free t-shirt to the person who calls themselves Survival. If that's you, just shoot me an email with your shipping info at corey@brainstormblog.net. We still don't have any reviews on Stitcher, so there's still a free shirt up for grabs. This week's podcast shoutout goes to the Godless Spellchecker podcast. I'm pretty new to listening to this podcast, but the first episode I listened to had Michael Shermer on it, and since then he's had some good guests and covered some good topics. He also has a great blog that's well worth the read. I'll post the links in the show notes, but you can find him at Spellchecker on Twitter. I also wanted to talk about C-Web's Sunday School closing. It fit into my favorites quite nicely, but I guess Mr. Weber has hit the limit of silliness from the religious that he wants to refute. I really like his intro music, and according to the last episode, he said he will be making music and posting that in various places. And I believe he mentioned something about a paranormal skeptic podcast called the Paranormal Skeptic Academy. I will look for the links to those and we'll post them in the show notes. I have to say thank you to Chris Weber for running his Sunday school as long as he did. It was very informative and always a good listen. That's it for now, and thanks for listening. Have a good one.
never get it, so forget it. Here we go, go, go. Hey, I can't escape it. I'm 10 seconds from panic again.
I love Amway. Amway funds my life. Amway is the source of my happiness, and Amway will make everyone happy as long as you convert to Amway and believe in the God of Amway.
I think that's enough product placement.
The products in Amway are far superior than any other. Sorry, I'm usually much more eloquent, but it's Sunday, so fuck that.
Yeah.
There's no worries there.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think we'll be fucking offended.
We're not a particularly eloquent bunch, I guess.
Well, I don't know. I think I am.
Yeah, you are.
A lot of the ways media covers things is also detrimental. When they say that somebody's insulting Islam or insulting Christianity, you can't insult a belief. It doesn't have any feelings.
I don't believe all these that our mortality is derived from the plot of a cunning, walking and talking snake that tricked a stupid rib woman to trick her equally stupid dirt husband to eat a stupid piece of fruit that now we're all punished for. I think that's a very stupid belief.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Corey, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.